Jeremy and I had that the series that we do every year for First Bite, where we bring on a beat writer from the local school of the Lions draft pick, and we actually talked to two different beat writers about Jahmyr Gibbs. We talked to somebody from Bama, and then our last episode was talking to somebody who's on the Georgia Tech beat, and they had been covering Georgia and Georgia Tech football since I think it was 2003.
Mhm.
And the thing that stuck with me was the mention that in terms of like the two most talented football players he'd ever covered, one of them was Calvin Johnson,
Of
and
course.
the other one was Jahmyr Gibbs. In terms of just and a lot of people keep on coming back to it, and Brad Holmes has said it, and totally blanking on the awesome beat writer that we had from Georgia Tech come on and talk to us, but they kept on just saying he has it, like he
Yeah,
has it, and I feel like the trait that they're talking about is that breakaway speed, right?
yeah,
DeAndre Swift had breakout speed. You know, he was quick as a hiccup in terms of his ability to accelerate,
yeah.
and he had some shiftiness to him, right? It was getting away from guys that DeAndre Swift didn't really have that extra gear.
Sure.
Jahmyr Gibbs has that, right? And
Oh,
not
yeah.
only does he have that, Miko, he's a receiver. Like he's a weapon. Like I mean, I couldn't be any more excited about a guy than a running back that gets picked 12th. Like, yeah, I'm super excited about that guy.
So, because I don't want us to go back to the defensive side of the football,
Okay.
I'm going to agree with you that it is Jahmyr Gibbs because my original player was Jack Campbell because
Okay.
I just feel like Jack is going to come alive. And I'll keep it short and sweet on Jack. I think what Jack Campbell does best can only be shown when he has pads on. Like he can't really showcase it when he's only allowed to two-hand touch people.
Sure.
And it will not surprise me at all if like one of the reports that come out is that like Jack Campbell got into a fight with like Taylor Decker because he just like he just went a little too aggressive on like a blitz or something like that and Taylor just wasn't having it.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, that's my Jack Campbell spiel right there. But Jahmyr is the next one because I do think we've been talking about like the speed and the elusiveness and the it factor. For me, like his it factor is actually his vision because it's the one thing that I don't think enough people talk about because the speed is tangible. You can see that literally as he's pulling away from guys. But it's not until like you get into like breakdown of his runs
Mhm.
and I've continued to just beat this drum to death. Alabama's line was so terrible that if it wasn't for the fact that Jahmyr Gibbs had great vision and amazing feet, he would not have got drafted as high as he did. Like he took runs that probably should have been like to Ben Johnson's point, maybe 4 to 5 yard runs, and was like, no, I'm making these house calls
Yeah.
just because he can see things better and he understands angles and he doesn't have to stop his feet. He literally can just not even like stick a foot in the ground. It's like just toe tap the ground and then just teleport to another part of the field.
Yeah.
Um, when doing like film study of him, it was like, dude, this is Christian McCaffrey level stuff. Like this is stuff that Christian McCaffrey does. It's just you put a rocket on his back and it just looks better.
Yeah, he's special, man. That was the name that Brad Holmes name dropped in the interview with Schrager. I know we keep on going back to it, but he was talking about when he first got to I mean, St. Louis at the time, but when he got there, Marshall Falk was the dude, right?
Hmm.
And he talked about a little bit. There have been a lot of those comps, though. Been a lot of comps to Marshall Falk
Yeah.
and Christian McCaffrey and just the backs that have the natural ability of a receiver to run full, to run routes that wide receivers run.
Hmm.
And I think that's what removes him from the discussion of, well, you can't take a running back in the first round because you're not going to get the value out of it. It's
Yeah.
like people don't say that about wide receivers, right? And if you have a quote unquote running back who plays wide receiver, you have a different kind of dude, and I think he's just so special, man. I'm so excited for what he can do. But that's not even. I mean, I know we're talking rookies, but that's not even talking about David Montgomery. It's a whole different backfield.
And that's the one thing that like I've been saying whenever there's the line or whether it's Dan Campbell or Brad Holmes or anyone's like, oh, he's a weapon, my first response is then don't holster that weapon. Like I don't want to see Jahmyr Gibbs on the sideline too often, right? He doesn't
Yeah.
have to be running the ball every time, but like he needs to be on the field often, in my opinion, because that's how you utilize a weapon and that's how you keep a weapon a threat. If you just keep it holstered and everyone just gets to stare at it on the sideline, then like no one's going to care about it. Obviously, yes, until it burns you, but like make the league fear Jahmyr Gibbs early and often is has been my outlook about him.
Yeah, and don't you feel like that's gonna happen when you're missing Jameson Williams for 6 games too? Like, you're gonna want your playmakers on the field as much as possible, and to your point, I think the thing that Jahmyr Gibbs, to your point, he opens up stuff just by being on the field in terms of,
Mhm.
hey, he's in the backfield, pre-snap stuff, Goff sends him out into the slot. It's telling you what the defense is in, right? Like, I mean, there's so many little things that just moving Jahmyr Gibbs as a chess piece around that offense. And if if I can trust anybody on the Lions to do their job, I'm trusting Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And just and speaking of which, I mean, again, let's hope that we finally get that 2 back in like both backs in the backfield or 1
yeah,
in the slot and then motioning in the backfield because like you said, David Montgomery is another guy where it's not like you're not tipping your hand when he's back there. Like you literally have to be ready for anything. And if you put Jahmyr back there or if you flex Jahmyr out from there, defenses are going to have to like stop and think for a second. You're going to get a lot of linebackers just toe tapping because they're not going to be sure what to do once that ball is hiked up.
yeah, absolutely.